So what we're looking at most, or we're most interested in, are the interactive technologies that make digital signage more engaging. As an advertising agency, our clients really are looking for ways to not just have such a passive impression, but to really engage the client. So we look for the different interactive technologies, touch screen, the ability to integrate social media into the screens, kind of to bring the online world into the physical world, which is where we really see from a trend standpoint, digital signage as it pertains to advertising going. That's really where we see the most benefit. And using the mobile phone as sort of the catalyst to draw that out and bring it out. And the potential for the mobile phone to be a point of purchase anywhere and to have that transaction facilitated by a digital sign is really exciting. The biggest tip I can give to an emerging company coming up in the digital space would be to make sure that your metrics and your measurement for your impressions are sound, and that you really do your research to look at other media distribution channels that are delivering a similar audience, because when you come in to speak to an agency, we're looking at all media that deliver that particular audience. So we're going to evaluate your network against those other channels, and if your impressions don't match up, or if you're not familiar with who we're evaluating you against, it becomes really easy to start eliminating the groups that haven't really become prepared. And unfortunately, we have seen a lot of the digital networks that have come up through the years, great technology, great venues, delivering a really valuable audience, but don't have the metrics to back it up. They may have cash register receipts as an impression, but the screen's in the back of the store. Different things like that as an ad agency that evaluates media for a living, we've got to be able to connect the dots a little bit, and our job is really difficult, and we do have a lot of different channels to go to, so if it's not 100% there, it becomes difficult for us to go out on a limb with our clients to make a recommendation. The second thing I would say is, if you're going to be an ad-supported network, in most cases you're going to have content. And what we've seen a trend of a lot of the networks going towards very safe content, weather, news, which is fine, and I don't think anybody, a consumer, would ever say, oh, I have a problem with that, but I don't think that they would particularly seek it out either. I think we get a lot of our weather on our phones, news on our phones, on our computers. We all have sort of our personal methods that we get that information. I don't think anybody goes into a coffee shop and expects to get the news or the weather at that particular day. It might be fine if they see it, but they're not going to seek out that content. We really would like to see networks create more strategic content partnerships, deliver content that maybe can't be found other places. You really have to look at these networks as mini cable networks out in the real world. It's very complex and it's scary, and I understand that there's an investment that goes on there, but I also think there's an opportunity. There's a lot of content providers that are looking for new distribution channels, and digital out-of-home or digital place-based could be a scaled distribution channel for them. It does deliver a lot of impressions in a lot of cases, and I think that there are partnerships that can be made there. I think of like a health club. Why wouldn't they have a strategic partnership with Men's Health, Women's Health, to come up with custom content short form that you can only get in the gym, and then if you want the long form, push them back to the website or push them back that way. So it becomes a very symbiotic type relationship. So I'd like to see the trend move away from safe and start to look at some of those strategic partnerships that bring the viewership up a little bit. Have the clients or the potential viewers go seek out that content. The ways that you can capture them are sort of through like I spoke before, about the interactive technology and the different things that can sort of help make it more engaging and draw them in. It's not always possible in all cases. So again, if the consumer goes to these types, and typically they do, they go to that coffee shop or they go to that gym or they go to that mall pretty frequently, rarely is it a one-off. If they start to see that content is something that they can't find anywhere else, if the content is entertaining, informational, I think they'll start to pay more attention. Maybe not that first time, but the second time they remember a little bit, they watch a little bit more. The third time they watch a little more. So you get that repetition until they're really engaged by it. And like I said, if you have these strategic partnerships where you can push them back online, and whether that network maybe wants to control that content, they push it back to their side. I've seen some networks, Captivate comes to mind, that does some of that, pushes some things back to their website. You could do that, or you can, if it's a strategic partnership, you can push them back to that strategic partner. But it really does come down to that engaging content. If we were going to sell advertising space on a cable network, but we were not pushing out content that you wanted to view, you're not going to go watch the television channel, and you're not going to have the viewers there. So a network can have, perfect placement, which are all important as well. Perfect placement within the venue, really understanding the flow of traffic through a venue, how long people are dwelling with the screen, standing there, being able to notice the screen and consume the content. The content has to be good. And like I said, I think a lot of times we do safe, but that's not engaging. It's not entertaining. And you look at, the weather again, and you move on. Well, they didn't watch it long enough to get through the content to see the advertising, which is something that as an advertising agency we look at a lot. I think a successful campaign, to me, when using digital screens, is when the full use of the technology is taken advantage of. Because I think a lot of times we see people and they just repurpose a television commercial and they throw it on another screen. But what I've seen are some brands that I have a client right now that I can't mention it because it hasn't gone public. But what they did was they used the fact that screens are IP addressable, that you can update the content in real time, and they encouraged their customer to create user-generated content that they pushed out onto their website, but then they linked that to Times Square signage and other large format digital screens, so that one, it scaled the promotion. So they maybe had a few thousand hits on the website and people generating, but then you move that to Times Square with 1.5 million a day. It scales it very, very quickly. Not to mention that then encourages people to participate more online. It's like, oh wow, I could be up in Times Square, and they get very excited about that. People get very excited with their pictures on billboards and things. Using that generated content, and again, moving into online and back into the physical world, and back into online and back into the physical world, and using the mobile phone as sort of a catalyst to facilitate that. Those are the types of campaigns that by the end, you're getting all kinds of earned media impressions because people are sharing it. You get PR buzz. You get all kinds of these other intangibles that you can't really plan for to start. You sort of know that they're possible. If this gets legs, it can really move. But we can make a pretty educated guess that people are going to be interested and want to participate in this type of promotion. So really leveraging the technology that's available, because like I said, we see so many people that get excited that they can put an ad up on a billboard and not have to pay a couple $100s for the vinyl production. And that's not, if you have to then share that space with other advertisers, that's not really a good use of that media. But if you can take advantage of the fact that you can update your message based on weather conditions or traffic patterns or all these different types of environmental conditions, now you have a relevant message. Now somebody's like, wow, that's cool. It's not something they're used to seeing when it's real time, it's relevant, it's speaking to them. It becomes a much more valuable type impression than just sort of this, I saw it on a billboard. So that client of ours that it's rolling out right now, that is very cool. I started participating with the DSE I was asked to be a content awards judge 6 or so years ago, and our offices were very close to one another in Atlanta at the time. So that's how I initially got involved, and then I started attending. So I've been coming 6 or 7 years to the show. And then from content awards judge, Richard asked me if maybe I'd be interested in helping shape some of the educational tracks for the advertising segment of it. So I got involved there as a facilitator. I chaired a couple of them, then passed along the chairmanship, and just stayed on to help. And I've continued on in that capacity to help sort of shape those education tracks. And then as a speaker, for the last few years, I've either been a speaker or a moderator. This year, I was on the panel at the end of the day as part of the digital out-of-home pre-show. And my panel spoke about how ad agencies evaluate and put a value on digital place-based networks, and sort of how we integrate those into our media plans, and how we look at it from a pricing standpoint.